Okay, good evening, everyone. You said we're ready, right, Jane?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. We're starting at 6:03 on December the 6th, 2021. Time to call the City Council meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Austin?
Here.
Mr. Hukin? Ms. Jones?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Nally?
Here.
Mr. Prine?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Tonight we're going to have Mr. Tom Moore lead us in prayer. And Tom, before I'm going to ask this a little bit different tonight, we want to ask for a moment of silence. We had a police canine, called canine officer. Our police dog passed away. Pepper was 7 years old. Pepper was also with the Franklin Police Department for 6.5 years. And keep in your thoughts Jeff Dahl and Jess Brown, who was the partners with our canine dog. So just have a, Tom, if you'd ask for a moment of silence before you have the prayer, we appreciate it.
Sure. Let's have a moment of silence. Our Father, we come to you tonight, and we're just admiring the beauty of even this chilly night, driving in and seeing all the Christmas lights, and just reminding ourselves of what this time of year really brings. It brings hope. It brings peace. Father, there are a lot of people hurting and suffering, and we do want to pray for them. We pray for the loss of Pepper, this officer dog, this canine who was killed. Lord, we just pray for the officers, his handlers, Lord, those who are close to him. We know that is a real loss, and it hurts, and so we pray for those involved. Father, we pray once again for our city of Franklin, this beautiful city, its residents. Lord, tonight, for some reason, you put on my heart its school systems, its public schools, and we just pray for protection from our children. Especially what's going on across the world. We pray for your ultimate protection for our kids and for our teachers and the rest of those who work for our city. And we think of the volunteers, and we think of those who are volunteering their time tonight, the councilwomen, the councilmen, and the city attorney, the mayor, who are all here volunteering their time, Lord, to, Father, just plan for your city for the new year coming up, 2022. We just pray that it would be an eventful and a fruitful time for Franklin. We love you, Father. Thank you for all your blessings. The Psalm says that you give your blessings to us daily. And help us to be thankful for even the small things that we have in life, and to help those in need, especially this time of year. Thank you, and we pray this in your Son's name. Amen. Stand and say the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to clarify this one thing. Pepper died of natural causes, just so to clarify that. Okay, thank you. Under announcements, presentations, and public comment, we do have an announcement. Chip Warner, do you want to do that? It's an information related to a memorandum of understanding for corporate sponsorship of pedestrian bridge located at Youngs Creek Park, our new amphitheater area. Chip, thank you.
Yeah, so if you get new sponsors or donations in for the amphitheater, one of the things we'll do is we'll come and at least let you know that. They're usually approved at the Board of Works meetings, but I thought it'd be a good idea if you guys knew too. So we just approved one tonight. That's for $100,000 for the bridge sponsorship. You've been back there, but there's a nice beautiful pedestrian bridge back there. And it's going to be sponsored by the William E. Paris LLC, and it's actually going to be named the Paris Station Trailhead Bridge. And they did the agreement's for $85,000 by the end of this year, and 15 at the end of next year, but I do believe some conversation I've had with them, they're gonna pay the whole $100,000 by the end of this year, so. Just to keep you in the loop, get some private donations. So.
Thank you, Chip. Okay, is there any other announcements or presentations or public comment?
I would like to also point out that the funding that, the funds that money is going to go into was modified by the Board of Works. We really have two types of monies that comes to us related to the amphitheater. The first is sponsorships, where someone pays us a set amount of money, and in return they get advertising, they get naming rights, etc. That money originally was going to go into the donation fund that we already have established for the city. That probably isn't the right fund for it to be in, because donations, as you all may know, when someone makes a donation, they're not asking for anything in return other than perhaps a specific project to be done. And you always have to give full faith and credit to a donor's intent. And so that's the money that should go into the donor fund. So if someone comes in and says, I want to sponsor this park bench for X amount of dollars, that's what the money should be used for. Sponsorships, on the other hand, can be used for offsetting your operating expenses, and that's what the intent of the Hubler sponsorship was. That's what the intent of this particular sponsorship is. So it will be used for ordinary costs, and there's a difference between someone who is sponsoring something in exchange for advertising versus someone who simply gives money because they want to give money to the city. So we have two separate funds for those things so that the clerk treasurer's office can account for those funds in separate ways.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gregg. Okay, that gets us to the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda for 11/15/21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to read the old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read old business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 1, Common Council Ordinance number 21-25, annexation be known as Lastly annexation, 0.49 acres. Mr. Richards.
Yes, I am subbing for Ms. Tennell tonight, and so please bear with me. I don't normally do this. This is an annexation of a residential parcel on Graham Road. The property owner had a failed septic system that required connection to the sanitary sewer system. As a general rule, Franklin does not provide sanitary sewer service outside the city limits. So Mr. Lasley was requested to submit a petition for annexation of his property. The Planning Commission heard this on November 15th and forwarded October 19th. The Planning Commission voted 11-0 for a favorable recommendation to be forwarded to the council. Tonight, there's a public hearing for the annexation on the agenda, as well as adoption of the fiscal plan after the public hearing has been closed. Final action will be taken on December 20th for this annexation. Did I
Okay,
miss anything?
You did not, other than to say, this is in the fire protection district, so if you take final action on, this is one house, and they have connected to the sewer, and if you take final action on it, then it will become effective technically in the end of the calendar year 2022, because they're in the fire protection district, but it is just only one house. Mr. and Mrs. Lastly had a failed septic system. The Department of Health asked to assist these folks, and we said we would if they would annex, and they were happy to do that. So.
okay, so at this time, we're going to open this up for a public hearing. Any questions from the public or any comments? Now's the time. Okay, I don't see anybody moving to run to the podium, so at this time we'll close the public hearing. And then the next item would be, as Mark has already said, we can at this time approve, if council so wishes, resolution number 21-37, which is the fiscal plan to be adopted.
Correct.
I move to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the fiscal plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, final action can be taken on the 20th. Thank you, Mark, on that one. Next item, Common Council Ordinance number 21-26, annexation to be known as Oakley Farms 2, annexation 32.43 acres. And then after we have public hearing on that, if you so wish, we can do the approval of resolution number 21-38, the fiscal plan. Mr. Richards.
Yes, this parcel is located on the east side of County Road 600 East and south of State Road 44. The Plan Commission on October 19th did forward a favorable recommendation to the council, a vote of 10-1. This petition was properly advertised for the Plan Commission meeting. Copy of the annexation ordinance is included with the packet, and a copy of the fiscal plan and resolution adopting the fiscal plan also accompanies the ordinance. The timeline was introduction on November 15th, public hearing tonight with adopting the fiscal plan, and final action to be taken on December 20th.
Okay, so at this time, we'll open it up for public hearing. If anyone wants to ask questions or comment, please feel free. Okay, if not, yes, sir. Yeah, go to the microphone.
Not you want to go first, or you gonna wait for me to go, or?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Anything that I need to sign?
Just state your name for the record, please, sir.
What's that?
Please state your name for the record.
Sure. My name's Andy Hensley.
And before we get started, we do, and I think you know this, Andy, you've been through this several times.
Yeah.
Is it 15 minutes?
20.
20 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Does that include if people stop and ask questions, or if you had that on there?
That's the whole enchilada.
That's it?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I know Mr. Knopf will come up and Mr. Norton are going to speak about the annexation. I do want to say something, though. The annexation, you failed to mention that it was a really contentious meeting. I know Irene was at the second meeting, I believe, but the first time through for the rezone, the annexation went through. The rezoning was pretty contentious, as all of them have been split. As a matter of fact, it was mostly unfavorable. It was split between unfavorable, favorable. Interestingly, a month later, two people that voted unfavorable switched their votes and voted favorable. I'm not sure how that happened, but it did. And I mean, it was teetering on the brink of an unfavorable recommendation coming your way, and I'm sure that made some people really nervous. But what I will say is this. It has been contentious, and this whole annexation on the farthest out of the buffer zone has really caused a lot of division amongst a lot of folks. I think you all know that. I've been to both meetings that we've had, the previous annexation, which was the, one thing doesn't work, but it's just to the north there. And I will say this, I was really pleased that we had 3 council members, McGinnis, Hugan, and then former council member Reinierson, that agreed with us and voted. I think they agreed to annex it, but they didn't agree to the rezoning. And we really appreciated that leadership, because that was a tough vote. And I understand that leadership can be tough and gritty, guys. I mean, I understand that. But I want you to understand this, that people's lives are being affected. Generational people, these are generational people. And I think it's easier for Mr. McNaught to come up here and talk about this and that and make it sound really good. And then he gets to go back to Carmel and go to bed. he didn't have to stay down here. And I think, it's gonna get, I hope that Mr. Norton has the stomach for it, because he does have to live here. And I think it's gonna be, this is not gonna be the last thing that's gonna come in front of you. But I can tell you that there will continue to be people here that will speak against it. If you look at that 600 East property, there is a pipeline that runs through it. My little laser pointer doesn't work, but if you look, there is a pipeline. I don't know how to, Aaron, do you mind pointing that out up there? But there's a pipeline that runs through there. Can't move it. And I don't understand exactly what type of building that you're gonna put there. It's gonna be an odd-shaped building, that's for darn sure, because people on the east side of that property, it's us, the Browns, we're not selling. To the south, Webb's, they're not selling. So I don't know, they're kind of boxed in. I'm not sure exactly what the design is for that plan, for that piece of property. I will say this, we feel like we don't have any representation. Well, we don't have any representation. As the city aggressively expands to the east, the county kind of laid down and didn't protect us with any kind of TIF. We just feel like that we're kind of in no man's land out there, and we have no representation of any kind. We're asking for council members to protect us. We're asking for you to protect us, not carnal speculators, not us, generational Franklin families. We're asking that you protect us and, speak on our behalf. Again, a lot of generations of farm families, good families that live out there that are going to be adversely impacted. As I mentioned too, the timing, the scope, it just doesn't make sense to me. On the farthest east of the buffer zone, it makes no sense. There's quite a bit of ground that still needs to be developed before it even gets to that point. And right now, I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit kind of like the Wild West. People calling all the time, wanting to throwing ridiculous amounts of money out, trying to get people to buy and wanting to talk and this and that. It really, truly is the Wild West. And then, really, to me, this is probably most important. I've been around here for a long time. Many of you I know a lot of people. And that's, I guess, the older you get, the more people you know. I don't really know how that works, but it works that way, I guess. I do not come across a lot of people that jump up and down and look out there and see excitement. While there might be city folks, the planner, certain people, they might get excited and say, look at all this good stuff going on out here. But when I look out there, I see sadness. And I think most people in Franklin look out there and they don't like it. They don't like the far expansion that's happening. And I get it along the corridor, but when you're talking about pushing out almost to the Shelby County line, that makes no sense to me. And I think if you ask your constituents, which I hope that you're doing that. Sean, do you represent East Side folks?
I represent the whole city. I'm at large.
Okay. Who represents East Side folks? Good. Thank you. East Side.
I go all complete south side.
But I can tell you right now, I do not talk to, maybe I must not talk to enough people, but I don't get that sense of excitement. If anything, it's a sense of, I really don't like what it's bringing. I don't like the traffic. I don't like what potentially it could bring. Truck stops, other things like that. I'm going to tell you, that's what I see, and that's what I hear.
Truck stops not happening.
No truck stops.
Well, you're here. But that can change.
No truck stops.
Okay, but never say never. So I'm just saying what it brings. That Whiteland said they'd never have a truck stop too. Greenwood probably said they'd never have a truck stop. So all I'm saying is, when I talk to Franklin folks, I do not see people jumping up and down about it. And I would say, ask your constituents. I would say that. Ask them. Go around and talk to them and ask them, what do you think about this? And I would say that you're going to get a very tepid, if not poor response. And particularly, I know, I was gonna say Irene and Josh, congratulations, by the way, and I know you hate for you to have to start the first meeting on something a little bit contentious. It's not what I meant to do, but I would say this: ask, go around and check and see, drive out there. You don't have to come out and talk to anybody, but drive out, look around. Tell me, I guess it would say, does it feel right? Because if there's something in your gut that tells you this just doesn't seem right now, then I would say, then don't vote for it. Don't vote for it. Trust me on this. People will be back. And I would say this: I don't believe the timing's right based on some of the other things I've laid out. I think people are concerned about it. And at the end of the day, you know, I want to protect Franklin folks. And then finally, if there's a positive that's come out of this, and I'll say this a million times, it's that it's galvanized a lot of people that live in unincorporated areas on the east side of Franklin. It's galvanized people that I hear from on the south, and believe it or not, a lot of people on the west side. Because the buffer zone in Franklin goes actually out there pretty far. And it has really galvanized some people. And I think it's caused us, and it takes a while. It's hard to kind of go up against City Hall. It is. Not that anybody has ill intentions up here, but it's hard. And I will say this: that galvanization of folks, good people, I think has been a real positive, because I think people have become more aware of what's going on. I think that people, will probably become more, I don't know if I would say politically active. We've never really been involved in like politics that go on in the city limits. But I think people are going to pay more attention to how people vote. Because ultimately, you know, we are looking for people that are pro-farm, pro-agriculture, pro-family, and pro-property rights. That's what we're looking for. And if you're there, great. Join us, celebrate, vote with, you know, help us. That's all we're saying. And that's no disrespect to Peter, who's been around here a long time, and his family. I believe, too, Peter's mom was here to talk about Keep Franklin Small. I think a lot of Peter's family. I know Peter's mom and dad. I knew his grandpa. I don't know if you knew that or not. But I found it interesting that she was here to speak about Keep Franklin Small. Thank you. Because I believe that. And I know they're generational farmers. And I would just say that, in particular, Josh and Irene, I mean, I think you need to really take a good hard look at that. Being new, I hope that you do, just out of respect for those generational Franklin families. Sean, same thing. I hope that you take a look also. But at the end of the day, we're going to continue to do what we need to do to protect our property and to protect our way of life, and still, you know, be a part of Franklin. And I hate that it's caused this kind of division. I really do. I hate it. But it has. And whether you like it or not, it has. So with that said, I would guess I would ask, does anybody have any questions for me?
Typically, Andy, what we do is, and I'm stopping your time, we've got 9 minutes left.
Great.
For the rest of, typically what we do is we have the public hearing, we close the public hearing, and then council is always free to ask
All right,
questions.
so jot down some really good questions for me. I'm telling you, I'll be ready for you. But again, I do want you to really consider, I understand the annexation piece. And going back to the rezone, I am telling you, the rezone was a divided house. It has been every single time. And I would say that if you want to annex, fine, annex. But I would say it's not time to rezone. And I would leave it agriculture, and let's see what happens in the next whatever years. Maybe it's never going to happen. I don't know. But I would say if there's any part of your stomach that's telling you something ain't right here, then I would say, you know, to vote no on the rezone. And I'll leave it at that. I appreciate your time. Thanks, Mayor Barnett.
8 minutes remaining. Max, 8 minutes for the registration party, and then you will have equivalent time.
Hi, my name is Erin Slevin. I live on 600 East, and my family owns property near this parcel as well. My biggest thing is just the timing of it right now. I totally respect people having their own property and property rights. A ton of respect for the Nortons and their family. Our family's longtime friends with them. Along with the timing, one of the things, I don't know if you knew that $18.19 is the 40-hour wage that will afford an individual a 2-bedroom rental in Johnson County right now. And last time I saw from First Call Staffing, Energizer out by the interstate was just hiring at $14.50. So most of the warehouse workers, or is it higher now?
Yeah, there's a sign that was there today. I think it was, Josh, you seen that same sign? I think it's like $18.75.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, they need to be higher.
And let me just tell you, that's one of the lower paying ones. They have other higher paying jobs, but that's the main jobs they're looking for at this moment.
So we have an issue in the county with workers not being able to afford to live here, and I know that's something you guys are concerned with and working on addressing as well. But you've probably also noticed that a lot of our local establishments right now aren't fully staffed. They've had to adjust their hours. They're closed. Rallies is closed. Papa Murphy's is closed right now. Starbucks open at 7:30. You'll see people complaining about that all the time. Our first world problems here. And we also have one of the lowest unemployment rates we've ever had, I believe, especially one of the lower ones around in the state especially. So the growth we've seen was needed. It's been wonderful, but I just would like you to consider just maybe pumping the brakes just a little bit. I really would like to see our current businesses thriving, as well as the ones you've already said yes to, the Sunbeam, the GDI, the other ones, see them fully functioning and operating well before we just keep on pushing and pushing and pushing. So thank you for your time, and thank you for all you do.
Hold on just a second. Or do you want to hear Mac first, or do you want to?
I just want to make a comment.
The interested parties get to collect the 6 minutes and 9 seconds, regardless of what side you're on, and petitioner, well, that's it, 20 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Bob Schweinheimer. I live at 752 Paris Drive. I get it, Andy, Ms. Levin. It's scary. Growth is scary. But you guys do control your own destiny. Don't sell. I think you said it best at Planning Commission, not for sale. So let's talk about specifically the property in question here. That they talk very well about in generalities, but let's talk specifics here. The ground to the north is already in the city. The ground to the west is not in the city, but it's industrial. It's the Umbarger property. They mentioned the pipeline that runs down through the middle. As you can see, I think what you see there north of it, kind of cutting through that forest or woods area, that's the pipeline. It does run at an angle. That property right there is already in the city, zoned industrial. Ground across the west, even though it's not in the city, is zoned industrial. So you asked about the pipeline, saying, well, nothing can be built there. It's 100 acres of ground, folks. That pipeline is a 40-foot easement. So that they build around that easement. They put parking lots on it. So the buildings, you understand how big 100 acres is? You can put a big building on 100 acres. So building's not going to be a problem. No one said they're going to build this thing tomorrow. What they're doing is they're doing good planning for the future. So all they're asking you right now, and they talk about property rights. What about the guy that owns the ground now? Doesn't he have property rights? You know, so I said, I get it. And part of me is a little scared of it. I've lived here all my life. And so I can remember when I'd ride my bike around town, and I was 8 years old, and the city limit stopped at 31. It stopped about at Versailles Street, Main Street, Champion List, that was it. So, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, this property was bought, or at least optioned. It's gone through the Planning Commission, got a favorable recommendation. The planning staff that we put together, we pay them a lot of money because they do a good job. They're recommending favorable recommendation. I think you have to look at the specifics, not the generalities. And I recommend that you do go ahead and annex and rezone industrial. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there anyone else left that wants to say something against the project? Mr. McNaught, do you?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the record, my name is Matt McGod. With Peter Norton, we are the owners of the 42 acres highlighted in turquoise. We also own the property to the north that was just referenced, that this council approved for rezoning and annexation earlier this year. The first map, the colored map, more brightly colored map, is a map the city has to show not only the buffer area, but also show the new east side sewer interceptor that goes up the Amity. And that brown area includes this property. In fact, it just includes, it stops at our eastern boundary. And that brown area all the way north to 44 and all the way north to the Nyberg addition had been annexed and zoned for light industrial by the city. So what is before you tonight is not some outward reaching to Shelby County kind of step. It is totally parallel within those brown lines all the way north to County Road 100 north. And this vote, of course, at this moment is the annexation vote. My guess is we'll have further discussion and comments and staff presentation on the rezoning. But on the annexation, so you know, the Needham Township Fire District has approved removing the property from their fire district. We paid all the fees and lost taxes, so that step's been taken. And the staff, as has been pointed out, has recommended approval of the fiscal plan, and the Plan Commission voted overwhelmingly 10-1 for the annexation. The rezoning had more comments, but in the vote there, I believe, was 7-4. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
So is there anyone else that has any questions for Matt or Mr. Hensley or Aaron? Anybody else have any comments? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at this point. And the council is free to, at this point, if you wish, to ask any questions to either side, either party, if you wish. Or we can move on to the vote would be the 20th. That's when the vote will be.
That's on the, well, no, actually, you need to determine today if you wish to adopt a fiscal plan for the annexation. That is subject for this vote today. The rezoning would not occur until the official action of December 20th.
So at this point, is there any questions of the fiscal plan? If not, we would entertain a motion to accept the fiscal plan as presented.
And by nature of the statute, in order to adopt a fiscal plan for rezoning, you need to have a majority of the entire membership of the board, which would take a vote of 4. If not, you'll have a failed motion. We have 6 members here. We need a 4-vote member to adopt the fiscal plan.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the fiscal plan for the annexation.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second for resolution number 21-38, fiscal plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Now we'll go on to next item, Common Council Ordinance number 21-27, rezoning to be known as Oakley Farms 2, rezoning public hearing. Mr. Richards.
Yes, this rezone petition is to rezone the 42.43 acres from agriculture A to industrial light IL. This It was introduced at the November 15th meeting. Public hearing is tonight. Lynn, would it be appropriate for me to go through the commitments that
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. The petitioner has offered 5 commitments related to the rezoning petition. First, lighting. All exterior lighting shall be of a design that directs the light downward into the area or facade being illuminated. Second, east and south yards. Structures, parking areas, or drives shall not be located within the first 100 feet of the east and south boundary lines of the real estate. The 100-foot yard area off the east boundary line shall be planted with a minimum of 50 trees, such trees being native to Indiana and on the list of trees approved by the landscaping regulations for the city of Franklin. Third, berm additional tree planting. Within the front yard setback area along County Road 600 East and upon development of the real estate for industrial purposes, the owner shall construct a berm undulating from 3 feet to 5 feet in height. Such heights shall serve as a minimum, not a maximum. The slope of this berm shall be a minimum of 4 horizontal to 1 vertical and be constructed of topsoil. In addition to the number of street trees required by the ordinance, an additional tree shall be planted in the front yard as measured off of County Road 600 East right-of-way as required per ordinance for every 80 feet of frontage along County Road 600 East. Fourth, Fenceline Trees. Existing fenceline trees along the east and south boundaries of the real estate shall be preserved by the owner except where removal is necessary in order to allow installation of needed utilities or drainage ways or facilities. And fifth, these commitments shall run with the land, be binding on the owner of the above described real estate, subsequent owners of the above described real estate, and other persons acquiring an interest therein. These commitments may be modified or terminated by a decision of the City of Franklin Plan Commission made at a public hearing after proper notice has been given.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, this is also a public hearing on the rezoning. Obviously, the persons that have spoken may incorporate what they previously said with the annexation if they so desire, or they may address the board with any new information.
So just for the record, we're opening this up for public hearing as Andy walks forward. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Andy Hensley again. I just want to follow up with Bob Swineheimer. Did Bob leave? Oh, okay. So Bob left. I believe, I'm not sure, but I think the setback's more than 40 feet. I'm not sure. I thought it was 75. But I will say this. Regardless, if you look at that property and you can see, because the pipeline goes through part of our farm as well, I guess what I'm trying to understand is what those buildings would even potentially look like. And again, it's the Wild West, so who knows? I mean, it could be maybe whatever, I guess. But you've got a lot of residents, as I said before, that's going to be affected out there. Again, it's going to end up being a skinny, narrow building. I don't know how in the world, maybe I'm just missing something. That could be, I'm not too smart sometimes, so maybe I'm missing something. But I don't understand exactly how that's going to lay out. Maybe Mr. McNaught can address that. But I do think the pipeline certainly poses some problems. And again, if there's something in your stomach that tells you it just doesn't seem right, and guess what? I would say on December the 20th, on the rezone, I would say a no. And it doesn't mean that down the road that couldn't be coming back to you. But again, I'm asking that you look out for those folks that live out there that have no representation. Good folks, generational farm families. How much more time do I have, Lynn?
Well, if you're going to address rezoning issues, you have 18 minutes.
Okay. So can I talk about the generational farm families that are going to be impacted by the
Not sure how
rezoning?
it's related to the rezoning, but it's not for me to say what
Okay.
you can talk about.
Well, you know, there's a lot of generational farm folks out there. And I'm not going to name them all because some of them, and I also, I don't know, I take a little bit of offense to Bob's comment about Bob Swanghammer, you know, don't sell it, or, you know, it's people's basically ground, they can do what they want with it. I don't know, that just seems a little naive to me, if you want to know the truth. But I would say there's been some really good generational farm families out there that continue to farm and continue to support Franklin. And again, I would ask that you know, look out for those folks. I think it's okay to do that. I really do. I'll also say this, when I mentioned coming back on this rezone, if you look on the map on the north side of 44, all the way down almost to 700 East, I don't know, I'm pretty sure that Oak Leaf owns all that now. Now, I don't think they're owning it just to have fun farming. So I'm guessing there's a master plan here. And so I don't know how that's all going to look, but all the way down, I think, till you get to Mr. Level at 700 on the north side of 44. Lots of fun stuff going out here, guys. I'm just saying that because don't be naive. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening on the east side. And all I'm asking again on this rezone is that you say no, that you support Franklin residents, generational families that are good people, and that's all I'm saying. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully on December the 20th, you kind of join us and you vote no on the rezone. Thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else? Aaron, Ms. Levens?
I just had a few things that I forgot to mention when I was up here earlier regarding the Franklin's comprehensive plan. It's just a few things that never really get to be brought up when it comes to development, and there's some in there actually pro-ag objectives, and one of them is craft future development policies that limit rezoning of agricultural land without sufficient evidence that existing market supply will not allow the city to fulfill current market demand beyond a specific predetermined timeframe. And then secondly, another objective, work with local farmers and landowners to develop city growth policies which take into consideration the preservation of the most productive pieces of agricultural land. And I don't know, that's probably more of a plan commission thing. I know Ms. Nally, you served on the plan commission. I just would like to know if those things are happening, if those conversations are occurring with local landowners and farmers. So, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was noted.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Mac, do you want to address the rezoning or?
And to be fair, then you will have an equivalent 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For a rezoning, as was reviewed by the planning commission, I think it was a 7-4 favorable vote. Again, we're talking about 42 acres across from the Umbarger feed mill. And as John Umbarger remarked the other day to me, their mill is 1.2 miles from the interstate. So that's pretty close. So if you look at reasonable, responsible growth emanating from the interstate interchange, it seems to me that if you're 1.5 miles or 2 miles, that's an area of expected growth. But the 2013 comprehensive plan, and for the criteria of the rezoning, comprehensive plan is one of the first items to be considered. It talks about how the current inventory of industrial land may not be adequate, and that more industrial land is needed to accommodate a variety of employers' sites. That's quoted in the staff report. You may have read it, so I need to repeat that for you. It also talks about there should be at least appropriately zoned industrial land to protect it from competing uses. And finally, land use goal number 4, quote, ensure that Franklin has an adequate supply of appropriately located industrial land ready for development. The next criteria is current conditions. Industrial growth has occurred. Initially, when we got started in 2001 with Franklin Tech Park, it was 260 acres assembled there between what's now Forest Road and the interstate. Every mayor from Northern Blankenship on has said we extended that 30-inch sanitary sewer interceptor to accommodate growth. Mac, please keep growing. And then the map I handed you about the sewer interceptor confirms that not only did the city undertake the initial punch under I-65, but now has extended this east side interceptor, and the natural watershed, of course, includes this as far as a gravity flow, and it's, I don't know, maybe 1,100 feet west to that sanitary sewer. The other current conditions would be that as you look at industrial growth and having supply of industrial land, when you think of where schools are located, where principal residential areas of Franklin are located, they're on the west side of 65. So this strikes, I think, a lot of folks as pretty logical, and certainly the Youngbergers thought it was a good location for their trucks and their operations to access I-65. In terms of desirable use, we're contiguous to other industrial uses and are away from residential and school areas. Conservation of property values is the fourth line. From everything I understand, the property owners in that area, whether they're selling easements for the interceptor sewer or other properties, land prices have escalated dramatically as these industrial areas from Franklin Tech Park in 2001 have occurred. The final point is responsible growth. Again, the staff finds that the proposed rezoning allows the petitioner to provide for sites for larger lots for a variety of industrial uses consistent with the ordinance. The main thing I think that we've done is look at the zoning commitments. We just don't look at this as a red wrapper and say approve it no matter what. We went through a detailed analysis of not only the gas pipeline that clips the northeast corner. The second aerial I handed you as a bright orange line, that's the gas pipeline that's within the easement that Mr. Sleinhammer referred to. It again clips the northeast corner. So you wouldn't have a building in that particular corner. There's nothing around, as Mr. Inslee pointed out, but it would be a fertile area for tree preservation, and we allow for and commit to a 100-foot setback in tree preservation and planting area along the entire east boundary. We have further submitted, it's an area already zoned, so we can't make a commitment, but we have represented to the Plan Commission, we represent to you, that the woods to the north, we would take 200 feet off of the east and south sides of those woods to the gas pipeline and preserve that tree line as well. To respect our agricultural neighbors, much like we've taken other wooded areas within the city and preserved those to respect the fabric of this community. I'm not sure the tree preservation covenant made it in the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, that's the conclusion of the 5 minutes. I don't know how much more you have, Mr. McNaught, if you get to much time.
I think, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing. We could have a vote, but usually what and Mark, you may, with Joanna Sir, we usually table.
No, we take final action on the rezoning at the next hearing,
Okay.
at the next December 20th. And I would, to the extent it helps, I know our latest councilwoman is used to this because she's sat through planning commission how many times, but the 5 criteria that Mr. McNaught was referring to are included in your staff report. And so in preparation of the next meeting, you might want to look at those, page 2, 3, and 4, and 5. The reason that those criteria are there, I'm often asked, what are we supposed to be looking at in terms of making these determinations? state statute is very clear as to the things that we are supposed to, not we, things that you are supposed to look at in making your determinations that either the petitioner meets those qualifications or the petitioner does not meet those qualifications. And those were the 5 criteria that are listed in your staff report, including the current conditions, the most desirable use, the conservation of property, responsible growth and development. So when I was referring to Andy, I don't know some of those things are necessarily statutory. We all look to the statutory criteria, but and perhaps it will be helpful to you when you come and vote the next meeting if you look at those provisions in the staff report to take whatever information you've got to decide whether or not that information complies with those statutory requirements or does not comply with the statutory requirements. And that's why the staff report is included.
Okay, so we don't need to formally take it.
We just, it's set for final action at the December 20th meeting. We can close the public hearing at this point.
Okay, so at this point, we'll close the public hearing and go on to the next item. Thank you for the guidance, Ms. Ware.
You're welcome.
Okay, next item. Common Council Ordinance Number 21-34, an ordinance declaring dormant funds and transferring balance to active funds. Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes.
Thank you, sir. This was brought before you at the last meeting. These are funds that have not been used, that have very minimal amounts in them, and we would like your approval to move them to more active funds so people can use them.
So is there any questions for? Sorry, Jane.
I'm assuming these aren't restricted in any way.
Some of them are. I'm sorry.
They're designated for cough drops.
Really? That's what we're gonna buy with all of them.
Do you want one? I have.
But they will be used according to.
Can we move on this evening, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve Common Council Ordinance 21-27. All right, take that back, 21-24, I apologize.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we will go on to the next item. Common Council Budgetary Ordinance Number 21-25, an additional I swear I never touched that. I don't know what happened. Which Michelle? Wow. I'll just turn it off. How's that? Okay, Common Council Budgetary Ordinance Number 21-25, an additional appropriation ordinance donating police unrestricted supplies 217-002-200 in the amount of $1,030. Police Chief Kirby Cox.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I think I was here a couple weeks ago on this. We're just asking to appropriate some of the funds that were given to us into the unrestricted supplies in the amount of $1,030 so we can utilize those funds.
And we can act on this one tonight as well.
Yes, this was introduced at our last meeting. Wasn't it, Chief, if I recall? It was introduced at our last meeting.
Yes, yes.
It was introduced at our last meeting, sir. It's ready for action.
Move to approve Common Council Budgetary Ordinance Number 21-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Hearing none, we will go into new business.
Read new business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read new business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, first item. Common Council Resolution Number 21-39, amending Resolution 21-20, establishing guidelines for sponsorship opportunities for the amphitheater facility and sponsorship funds received to be used for operating expenses related to the amphitheater. City Attorney Lindgren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I probably jumped the gun earlier. I wanted to make sure everybody was still awake when we got into this part of it down here. This is the resolution that actually amends sponsorship resolution previously changing the funds that we were talking about here. So everything else with regard to our sponsorship guidelines, our criteria, our family-friendly types of advertising that is to occur remains in place. The only difference is where the sponsorship money is going to. It is ready for action tonight. You do so desire.
I move to approve common council resolution number 21-39.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we go to the next item. This item is introduction only. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Common Council Budgetary Ordinance number 21-26 and additional appropriation grants, JAG Police, AED Supply, 230013, $6,918, Police Chief Kirby Cochran.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Once again, very similar situation. We were here in the past. This is our JAG grant funds that were applied for by representative of the county. Agreement with the police department, these JAG grant funds are used for police supplies only. And Greenwood is the mediator, or so to speak, the person that applies for it. We are one of the recipients along with Sheriff's Department and Greenwood Police Department. Our amount received was $6,015 in grant fund dollars. It was just a non-matching grant. We're just asking to move that fund and appropriate it to purchase some AEDs for the police department.
And this is introduction only tonight, but since Chief is here, if anybody has any questions, now would probably be just as good a time to ask him the questions while he's here. Thank you, Chief. Okay, next item, and it is also for introduction. Common Council Budgetary Ordinance number 21-27, additional appropriation, MVH Services 300 in the amount of $617, Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes. And Jane, this is introduction, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Jane, you need me to handle it, or you?
I think I'm okay, but I'll probably need your help. Be on standby.
Okay.
If you recall, last month you approved we, the city, were paid in mistake on a mowing lien, and the county continued to collect $200 for several years after it had been paid. We were told by the county at that time that we would only have to reimburse them for 3 years. Well, they came back and they changed their mind. So we have to pay them for 6 years. So I need another $617, which is the amount you approved last meeting. So I need another $617 to be able to pay them back in full.
And we did receive them. The first time the
Yes.
county told us they collected, we'd only paid 3 years. Now they say 6, but we did receive all 6 years. So as frustrating as it is to Jane and I, wait a minute, you just paid us 3. In all fairness, we did get the money and the lien already paid. So it isn't our money.
I think if there's no statute of time limitations.
Well, that's what they told us in the
That's what they told us last time.
In the beginning, so.
But you're right, I came down ultimately on at this point, it really isn't our money, as frustrating as it is. It should go back to the property owner.
Okay, so that again is for introduction tonight, and we don't have any other business. So that gets us to council member comments, and I just want to start with Megan Harvey, putting you on the spot here. Thank you, Mayor. You had something?
Can I be other business?
Sure. You can monkey business if you want.
Well, that's pretty easy. I don't know, Lynn, if you want to, I know we didn't put the fire apparatus back on the council. Do you want to make them aware of the decision?
Absolutely, go ahead.
That's where it works.
Sure.
If you recall, was here last meeting, trying to get your thoughts, I guess, on building momentum around the purchase of a fire apparatus. At the time, it was kind of a fluid situation, so I didn't really have all the details that were needed to approve or to appease Ms. Gray, if I will. Was able to get her additional information, was able to get the additional information that she needed to feel more comfortable with creating a resolution for the Board of Works this evening. And the Board of Works unanimously agreed to move forward with that purchase. If you'll recall, The funding is going to be pulled through the CCD fund. 300,000 that was appropriated for 2021 dollars will be encumbered towards that purchase, and then the already appropriated 300,000 out of that same fund in your 22 budget would then be used to cover that balance. Right now, the truck itself is at $500,000, and I think we've agreed that we're okay to do that, but
Yes.
I don't know that it's technically required that you approve that, but just wanted to make you aware as the body that approves the funding, that where the dollars would be coming from, and that we were going to move forward with that. So
Thanks, Brett, for calling it to my attention.
Yeah.
You don't, the reason it's not on your agenda is we already have the money. It's appropriated. I think Brett's absolutely dead on. We should advise you of it. So we don't need an additional appropriation. We don't need anything. It's already in the budget. We approved it, the Board of Works approved it because it was a sole source contract with, ultimately, I ended up over $100,000 worth of savings to the city, so they did approve it when we went forward. So.
sorry, I wasn't here for meetings, I just wanted to make you aware.
Thanks for calling that to my attention. Thank you, Brett.
So with that being said, too, and I apologize if I was rushing through, I see Mr. Jeff Peters is here, and I know it's not on the agenda, but he has something,
Yeah.
talk about trash a little bit, on where we're at, and where we're headed.
Sure. One of the, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I know everybody's tired of it. This is important. One of the things that, we have two kind of parallel things that are going on. The first is the city has to contract, or I'm assuming we want to contract, with Ray's Trash to provide trash hauling services. And so that is an agreement between the city and Ray's Trash, which the Board of Works already, because the money is in the budget already, the Board of Works already authorized moving forward with that contract. If you'll recall at the last meeting, there was a conversation about whether or not we were going to pass that cost on to the residents, because we can no longer, quite frankly, we can no longer continue to bear all of that. If we are going to do that, that would require a resolution to come forward, and that would be this body that would decide on that resolution. And before I brought so we're going to contract with Ray's, we've already got that in place. It will start on January 1. But before I brought a resolution, I really wanted to get the thoughts of the council members as to, it's a 5-year fixed contract at $17.22 a household for the actual recycling and automated service. Even though the automated service won't begin for the first few months, they had wanted $18 and some odds, $18.50 for that service until the $17.22 kicked in. The mayor basically said, no, can do. If it's $17.22, we want $17.22 to start right now. And they ultimately agreed that they would start $17.22, even though it was going to be a little bit more. So I need to get some direction then from you. I'm assuming we're going to pass some of that on, but I need for you to tell me that to bring. I just didn't want to bring an ordinance, throw it at you without getting your input. What we should do with regard to how much of that to pass on. And another secondary issue is, do you wish to have ordinances? I've looked at more trash ordinances than I can hear speak from every community across the state. It seems like I tried to put a compilation of the typical ordinance that occurs. Greenwood is one that's pretty typical. I've looked at that a lot. And they have a provision in there that allows the Board of Works to authorize persons who are not going to be utilizing the services for an extended period of time, defined at least 3 months, for someone, let's say, that doesn't live in their house for 3 months because they go outside the community for 3 months, or if you have someone who is hospitalized and is out for 3 months, there's a provision in their ordinance that allows them to come to the Board of Works at least 30 days prior to when they're asking for what they call an abatement of their trash because they're not using it, and for the Board of Works to authorize that. If we were going to allow for such a process, that needs to be in the ordinance. So I just really, and Jeff can help with the financial part of it, I just need to get some sense about where you're all headed before I introduce the ordinance for you, and then you can have a discussion. So that's why I'm looking up and down the aisle here. It is also the intent, I believe, in most ordinances for collection of that fee to go through the sewer billing department. I will tell you there's a bit of a disagreement from a legal authority whether that can be enforced through lien on property like we just approved Jane, or whether it has to be done through small claims court. Either way, we can figure out how to do that. But the bill itself would just be included on everyone's sewer and stormwater sewer bill that would go out. So, having said that, I'm all ears. Tell me what you would like me to bring forward.
Sir, so I want to be real nice here because I love you to death. No, listen, this is not a public hearing. This is not a public hearing. We will have a public hearing when Ms. Gray brings the ordinance.
Sure.
I think, can you explain how that works?
Yeah, and that's why it's separate. I would bring forth an ordinance for introduction purposes on December 20th, so you all could look at it. And then we would set it for a public hearing the first part of January, much like we just did, where persons of the public, because we have to publish notice, and then we can make a determination on what we want to do. Then we have to publish it in the newspaper. It has to run for 2 consecutive times before an additional fee would go in. So before I just brought a cold ordinance to you, I really just kind of wanted to get some direction. There was nothing here that would be binding on the council until we had that official public hearing and introduction.
To one of your questions, does Raise allow for an abatement? I mean, will they continue to bill us? Does Raise allow that in the contract?
Well, they didn't until I stuck that in the contract today because I wasn't sure which way you were going to go.
And I guess is there going to be a set amount of time? You know, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Can I get my paper? Is it a month? Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months?
Generally speaking, and that's kind of a policy decision, but generally speaking, the ordinances I have seen have required anybody who's going to ask for an abatement, no less than 30 days before the abatement is to be in effect, are supposed to go to the Board of Works, give the reason for it. And generally, it's only applicable for 60 to 90 continuous days. Some places don't have it. I don't know what their contracts are with their trash haulers. If they had to pay the same amount whether you use it or not, then they probably don't have an abatement. If you have a contract with your hauler that does allow for an abatement, which we have to tell them 30 days in advance, being raised, we don't have, and sometimes Sherry has to do this with the sewer department too. Or it would leave the Board of Works the discretion to be able to determine that, but it's usually at least a 60 to 90 day period of time. Not required, you're not required to do that. I want to have this conversation. I mean, I would rather you know about the issue and then make a decision rather than not to contemplate the issue, I guess is what my thoughts were.
Has this been discussed with Sherry yet? I mean, what kind of nightmare paperwork processing could this cause for her? I guess would be a question I would have.
Yeah, Sherry.
But I definitely understand if someone's not going to be there for 60 to 90 days, how they wouldn't want to pay for it either, so.
Well, it's great that you asked the question because you're the Board of Works member as well. I could see people coming, don't know if it will. I could see people coming to the Board of Works and saying, look, my house is going to be vacant for 6 months. Do I still have to pay the $17.22? I don't think the Board of Works could give that approval unless the ordinance allows it. If you wish to have that. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the Board of Works would. The Board of Works would have the authority to say yes or no depending on the reason. But I don't think you can do that unless you put that in the ordinance. Yeah, the answer to your question, I had a long meeting with Sherry. And Sherry sees no difficulties in including the amount, whatever you define it to be, in the sewer billing itself. In fact, we've already talked to Gateway and they can do that as part of her program. Obviously, it's a little more difficult if you're changing, it's sliding scale every year. That's a lot more work, rather than just having one flat fee for the life of the contract. The life of the contract is $17.22 for the 5 years, so it stays $17.22 for the 5 years. She can do that. what would happen, there is an adjustment under the terms of the contract. The Department of Planning and Zoning must tell Rays 30 days in advance if there's additional numbers of certificate of occupancies that are issued. So the contract amount will go up, but it's a pass-through expense because we have additional people on it. We also have an equivalent provision in the contract that says if it goes down, we also then notify them, but that would be the sewer department. So certainly going to be more work for Sherry, but she says she thinks she can handle it, and would probably start happening farther into spring, then certainly not going to be January 1. But you have built into your budget the ability to continue to pay trash service, so the citizens will get trash service until your ordinance goes into effect.
So, and I think I heard a question, Lisa, just if we're going to do that, I would say it needs to be at least 30, or be at least 3 months that you're going to be gone. We don't want somebody that's going to be gone 2 or 3 weeks and come in. I would say that, you know, that's somebody that goes, a snowbird takes off for 3 months, and certainly I think we can consider that. And the house count would just go down, so we wouldn't be paying, Rays just wouldn't be picking the trash up, so they don't get paid for it. So.
But nothing requires you to do it. I just wanted to ask the question, be thinking about it before we do the ordinance. And if you don't want to, then I won't put that in there.
I guess what do you need from us?
I'm getting some idea about, is that something you want to see and you might delete out of your ordinance in terms of abatement? And first and foremost, how much are you going to pass on the full length of the contract cost on? And I think Jeff addressed that at the last meeting about, do you want to do the 1722 and just go with it? Did you want to do a graduated scale? Tell me how you wish me to bring something to you.
I would like to see the abatement in the contract.
Okay.
And I'm leaning towards passing along full 1722.
I agree.
Same.
And on the abatement end, are you looking at 3 months, or are you looking at less than that?
No, I would say minimum 3 months.
Yeah. I think 3 months, because that would give you, you know, basically take care of the snowbirds November,
Right.
you know, December, January, or, you know, December, January, February. I think that's feasible, and I don't think that's too big of a headache.
I think Sherry, when I asked her, she said she had 4 people that do that with their sewer, they shut it off. So it doesn't happen a lot, but I can envision.
Yeah.
I just want to have it there. Certainly nothing you're doing here today binds you to it. You can look at it, you can decide it, you can talk to your constituents, figure it out. Before I brought the bones of something, I wanted to get an idea where you were headed.
So just to clarify, when you will bring back an ordinance from direction from the council,
Correct.
is that ordinance introduction only when it comes back?
Absolutely.
And then the following meeting?
They will set up for a public hearing and hear persons from the public to entertain, because the idea at that point will be passing along the expense for the trash and how it is administered and how collection does in fact occur. And that will be in that ordinance.
So is that 2 meetings or 3, like in the annexation?
It will be 1 meeting, introduction, 1 meeting for a public hearing, and then we have notification requirements and publication in the newspaper, and that's what takes it at least 30, and Steve, I'm sorry, I have to remember if it's 30 or 60 days at least, so in all likelihood, we're looking April before we get everything started collected. But I just don't remember if it's a 30-day notification, publication requirement, or 60, where you actually, if it's adopted, it has to be published that it's been adopted.
Okay. Thank you. So is that the marching orders for?
Yeah, I would say that would be
Then I will
what
so
we'd
march.
like to see, and then we can make some adjustments.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're not bound by any of it. I will march in that direction.
And Irene and Josh, please feel free to jump all in.
Now, my only question is, and it's more of a information, the length of the contract, it seems, my understanding, the last contract was 10 years. Is that an unusual amount of contract that we had with them beforehand, and they were going to a 5-year, and this 5 year more of a standard thing there? It would seem to me that Yeah, we got pretty lucky. It was a 10-year, contract and that rate and everything, and we're naturally, contract in, probably gonna go up a little bit, accommodate things.
Sir, you're absolutely right. How it was able to be milked along for that long period of time is remarkable. It was a 2-page contract, and they just adjusted the house count and the house count. That was not something any hauler out there was willing to do for that long period of time. And if you recall, at the point, we were just getting the service because the city was paying it all. The thought was if we were going to be passing some of that on to the taxpayer, I'm sorry, it's not the taxpayer, it's because it doesn't go to your property tax, it's a user. It goes to whoever uses the service. If the thought was if we were going to pass some of that on to the user to defray those costs, then we should at least publicly bid it. And once we publicly bid it, then we got into where you enter into a contract. We felt somewhat fortunate that we could fix it at 5 years.
I'm going to ask a silly question. Can people opt out?
That depends on how you do your ordinance. That would
Well,
be
that's the reason I'm asking.
that would be a very, very, very difficult process.
But I know, I can't even imagine logistics wise, but I'm asking the question.
I've looked at some ordinances and some ordinances have,
95% no.
some of them ordinances have said that council could adopt a program. I am not aware of anybody who's ever adopted a program.
Fair enough.
Which is different than the abatement, of course. And both sides, obviously you're the policymakers. Many people say, when there's certain services in a community, people don't get to a la carte choose. You pay for school taxes even if you don't go to have kids in school. You pay for police and fire even if you hope you don't have police and fire at your house. So it's just part of it. And that's usually the thinking, but your thinking is whatever you wish to think.
Well, when I heard user fee, people say, well, I don't have any trash, or I don't have any bottles. I'm not gonna pay for that.
Just one point of clarification, the contract that was signed 10 years ago was a 2-year contract, and it just renewed every year for the next 8 years.
Thanks, Mark. I couldn't remember how long we did it. And that was okay because we were paying the bill.
And I will tell you that Raised Trash has been very aggressive to try to get this through. And for the last 2 years, it's gotten to the point that if Steve can give up, we got to do something. This is it. So that's why we're here. And it's fair. I mean, look how everything's rose up in 10 years and inflation, so it's fair.
Well, we've been putting the bill for so long, and I don't think people would even recognize that to live here. I mean, Steve, I'd put a percentage on it. I bet 35% of people, 40% of people live here don't understand that. Seriously.
And I want to just add
That's
to
just came through newspaper and through social media and such that we've been footing that bill forever. How long?
forever.
Okay.
But no, I just want to add, Kenny, with you saying that, leaf and limb pickup is still going to go on, that the city's footing the bill on that.
Yep.
Heavy trash pickup is still going to be the same.
Yep.
I just feel like with Ray's, what they've proposed here with the electronic, or with, the hydraulic trucks and all that doing the work and not having the labor, all these cities are going to this. And I think, Josh, didn't you tell me that you lived in Whiteland?
Yeah, they do it up there.
Yeah.
Have been for probably almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately the conclusion of what our financial advisor was telling us at our last meeting is it's not tenable, it's not sustainable. We cannot continue to do it, of course, with rising costs. It's just not something that can be borne by the entity itself.
Okay. Since Jeff's here, does anybody have any questions for Jeff? Sorry, Jeff.
Thanks for the invite.
You're still getting paid, right?
Bill, actually working on somebody else, so maybe not.
Okay, I'll let you live with that. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, I think Lynn has her marching orders, so now, you got anything?
I just have two very quick, this is informational purposes only, I promise you, because I want you to have information when you talk to your constituents. You may have seen a recent article in the newspaper talking about redistricting as a result of the census. Redistricting for municipalities and cities is not required to be analyzed and looked at until December of 2022. So the article was dealt with the county. That does not necessarily mean there will be any redistricting that will occur. What it does mean is we have to take a look at it and see if our boundaries stay basically the same, population stay basically the same. Typically that is, in terms of the timeline, something we do in the spring and take a look at it. Usually we have a consultant come in and look at that. The second thing is, you may also see in the news, a frequent topic of discussion is COVID requirements and COVID mandates for certain types of entities with regard to the number of employees. We would be in that, however, that provision of the law has been stayed and is currently being litigated, so that's why you've not been approached by me about considering it. Hospitals are under a different provision. Hospitals were under the provisions for Medicaid and Medicare, and that was not stayed. That's why hospitals were getting a little nervous, and then at the last minute it did get stayed. Stayed means the courts have stopped the mandate going into effect until it can be litigated. So you haven't seen it here. I will bring it to you when I know something on whether or not it is going to be a requirement, but I think there's a lot of legal fussing back and forth that's going to occur before that time. So that's why you've not seen it. That's it, I promise, sir.
And I think I'm on the side of, let's hope it doesn't happen. So I think most of you are probably the same, have the same feeling. So, anyway, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Now, Morgan, Harvey, thank you for being here, and I know one of our mayor's youth council had to leave, understandably, a long meeting. So I was going to ask you to say a few words and introduce them both, but we know that's Will McGinnis, your partner in crime tonight.
Yes.
So do you have any updates for us?
So this past couple of weeks, the Franklin Mayor's Youth Leadership Council has worked on putting together a bake sale at our winter market last Saturday. We raised over $400 to go towards future projects.
Wow.
Good job.
In addition, we handed out flyers about our mission and what we do, so the community would better understand what the Franklin Mayor's Youth Leadership Council was.
Thank you. Thank you, Will, for being there.
Okay.
Your sister was wondering.
Oh, okay.
Supervisors.
Yes,
So-
supervisor.
So, Josh, your first night, I want to welcome you as the mayor to the council, and I know that council members here will probably do the same. But anyway, I want to welcome you to the council and look forward to working with you. And do you have anything to add tonight?
No, I just want to say, thanks for the welcome and everything. I look forward to working with everybody and, and moving our city forward.
Thank you. Ms. McGinnis?
Just real quick, we were, downtown this weekend, market, we did the shops, and of course we did the art craft yesterday, so it was a great weekend, and so I just applaud everyone who's involved with that, from Discover Downtown to the street departments, everyone who makes that work, so thank you.
Mr. Austin?
Yeah, welcome to Josh, and welcome, Madame, to the council. I'm spacing your name, I apologize. They have some-timers, but sometimes they remember, sometimes they don't. I apologize in advance, that's embarrassing. Yeah, the market was amazing, downtown was amazing, and also the 20th meeting I will not be at, so Sean will have to take charge of the meeting on the 20th, and I doubt I'll be calling in either. So I'll be overseas, Steve. So
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Just reiterating what everyone else has already said, great festivities this weekend, and welcome Josh and Irene. Glad to have you on board. Thank you.
Sean?
Welcome Josh, Irene, and I didn't get a chance to make it down too much this weekend, but I still love driving through, seeing all the lights, all the photos, all the pictures of everybody downtown, so it was a good weekend.
Thank you. And Mrs. Irene Nally, I just want
Yes.
to, like I said to Josh, I'd welcome you to the council and looking forward to working with you. I do have one comment that I'll cut in. Irene was my appointment to the Plan Commission. So that's how Irene was on the Plan Commission. And now that she's not on the Plan Commission, it works out. Her time for me was up in December, and there's not a December meeting The council's appointment is Chris, and of course Chris is not here anymore. So I have chosen, I'll just go ahead and I reached out to ex-council member Joe Abbott and see if he, as he's been hounding me, that he'd really like to get back on the Plan Commission. So he's accepted the mayor's offer to join the Plan Commission in January. So you will need to appoint someone in January to the Plan Commission because Irene is not there and Chris is not there. So,
But it could be Irene if you want to draft her.
So can we do that tonight, or?
No, we
No,
don't,
no,
it's put it on there.
yeah. So I just wanted to get that out ahead of time.
Irene, you're interested in that position again?
Yes.
Great.
If you guys want to keep me there, I'll stay there.
At least
I
I
like
remembered
it
your
there.
name this time.
You use it sometime.
So back with that, welcome to the council, and I just got one question. Do you want to be Irene or you have a?
Yeah, everyone knows me by Renee.
Renee?
But, yes, but I'm happy with Irene too. That's okay.
Officially
But I do have
Irene?
to say this, I was in school, and this is no joke, it was like 5th grade. And you know, they always call you by your first name on the first day of school. And they were like, Irene Wells? And everyone was looking around, they were like, who is that? Who is that? And even me, I was like, I don't know, because I'm so used to going by Renee, that when they called me by Irene, I was like, what? Who that is? But, yeah. No, I'm happy. That's fine. If you want to call me Irene, I'll go by that too.
Okay.
Better what they call me. You'll be all right.
Jane, do you have anything else to say, Irene?
No, I was just, I was a little overwhelmed with the town this weekend. We came down too, and there was a lot of people, and I was happy to see that. And even tonight when I was driving through, I thought the town looked beautiful. How we have the lights and just the way everything looked, it was good. It looked good, and I loved it.
Thank you. Mrs. Rhodes?
Nothing, sir.
I'm ready. Nobody else? I'm ready for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.